One of the acronyms that I really like to think of when my learners are working by themselves in the classroom, so they're working in groups or they're working individually to try and complete a task, I think pause and reflect. So that's how I summarize what the teacher's role is in the classroom. I pause and I react. So let's have a look at pause first. You can see that each of the letters stands for something different. P, pay attention. Look for changes in the attitudes or behaviours. Are your students completing the activity or do they look confused? So stand at the front, pause. Over there, we have Precious. Precious isn't looking at the worksheet. He's looking out of the window. Does he not understand the task or is he distracted? Okay, so I'm paying attention, asking questions. Are they answering and completing the task correctly? Clarify with no hands up or quick fire. So maybe I'm moving into my classroom now and I look down to a pair who are working together. I'd look over their shoulder. Are they answering and completing the task correctly? I can see they are. Maybe I don't need to clarify with a quick fire question. Maybe it's appropriate for me to ask the question. The U, use your expertise. Determine if you need to re-explain the task. There's no shame in this. If your students are struggling, do you need to step in or let them work it out for themselves? What we mean by this is sometimes, I have done this so many times, I've explained a task, allowed my students to get going, and then realised that none of them are doing it. Now, there is no shame in me turning around and going, clearly I've not explained this as well as I could have done. So I count my students down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop, let me re-explain to you what I would like you to do. Firstly. Secondly, there's no shame in this at all, okay? However, sometimes you will have a student who's struggling and often we need to let them try and work it out for themselves and persevere and learn that skill of persevering. S, show interest, circulate the classroom, ask students how confident they feel completing the task. Be interested in them, understand how they feel about something. E, evaluate, consider if the task is pitched correctly. Write these reflections on your lesson plan for next time you teach this activity. Quite often I don't teach a lesson just once. I save it, put it in my learning portfolio and keep it for next year. If you're lucky enough to do that and something has gone really well and they have completed the independent task beautifully, or you've done something as a teacher that you feel your role during the independent learning, then what you can do is write it down and think that was a really good idea. Please feel free to comment whether you use any of these ideas, okay? Please do that. Now, what I've said at the bottom is that there are verbal, so there are words and non-verbal cues, behavioural, that you can use to help you to understand your students. So a student looking out the window and not really paying attention, that would be non-verbal. Okay, if they've got their head down, and we all know, we've all looked at our students before with pen in hand, really scrawling away, that's definitely non-verbal. Verbal, you might hear and listen to your students interacting if they're doing a pair work activity. You might hear them say the right answer. So there are things we need to look for that's verbal and non-verbal. So once we've paused, then we need to react and figure it out. So R, reach out. Create a team of experts. If there are students who finish earlier than others, so reach out to those who you know need pushing. Extend a helping hand. Do not be scared to assist or guide individual students who you think might be struggling. You might want to plan ways to help students beforehand, so differentiation. So if I'm setting the class an activity, but I know that the pair at the front are going to find it a little bit trickier than some of my other students, then I may plan during the independent task to sit with that pair, not to give them the answers, but to provide the expertise if needed. A, assume the best. Maintain a positive classroom by thinking the best about your learners. Know when you should not react to. We had a little look at that in the last slide. But do assume the best in them. It's easy for us to assume they won't do that task. They won't do that independent task. I know they won't. But that's not a positive attitude for us to have. So always consider, plan correctly for your learners, or try to, but assume they're going to have a positive attitude. Create opportunities, planned ways to praise and celebrate your learners. What are you going to do when the students complete the independent task successfully? How are you going to plan for that? Tap into their greatness. Plan extension activities for those who you know will finish early. So we have pause and react. These are all different roles that you can use in your classroom whilst your students are independent learning. Now, that was a lot to take in. Remember, please, to look out for your post-event materials, your emails. You are going to get this poster and you can print these out and put them on your wall. So we don't expect you to remember them by heart.